Hi, and welcome to another Think This Way, Rick Mummey podcast. Our guest is Scott Greeson. Scott is a local musician and excellent singer, songwriter, guitar player, record producer, and a whole lot more. And he and our good friend, Dr. Willl Miller, are going to do a show featuring music and storytelling and fun on May 2nd on the Mandolin streaming service. Scott will explain right now.
So the first time I heard that somebody was doing a concert on mandolin, I thought that I was going to be seeing persons playing the mandolin. Either that or somebody really thinly slicing vegetables.
Exactly. A very dangerous vegetable slicer, by the way.
Yes. I've learned though that mandolin is a very different thing indeed, and Scott Greeson and Willl Miller are going to take advantage of it on May the 2nd. Scott, tell us a little bit about what's happening on mandolin and just what the deal is with mandolin.
Yeah. Well, the name of the program we're going to do on the Mandolin Streaming Network, and that's what it is. It's a network just made specifically for high quality streaming audio and video. The show we're going to do is called Stories, Songs, and Satire. And we did an experimental run right before COVID in February of 2020. And Rick was, full disclosure, the amazing MC for that event. And thank you. You did a great job. But it was Dr. Willl and I and several of my band members, Mr. Kevin Ludwig on guitar, Vicki Maris Greeson on vocals and accordion and acoustic guitar, Miss Leanna Atwell on piano and vocals, and myself. And basically what we're going to do that night, as we did in the original live show, is we're going to broadcast it on the Mandolin Network, and it's an event where we're combining both comedy, insight, and real life stories that I tell in my songs, as well as the stories that Willl tells about life and the psychology behind why we do what we do, along with just laughter. And so it's all those things combined, and it's good for the soul. It's it makes you think about things. It's what we'll do that night. Obviously we rehearse the songs, but the banter back and forth and Will's inspiration from the songs and the stories he tells are, he plans ahead a bit, but at the same time, a lot of it is what hits his heart. And that makes it really exciting because it's very entertaining, but insightful all at the same time.
Yeah. And the ingredients included are pretty much peanut butter and jelly. I mean, they go together. They go together extremely well. The humor and music, storytelling, and the music and the storytelling with humor. It all mixes well in the hands of the right kind of folks, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I had a good friend that I worked with a couple years ago, and people that listen to my original music, I'm always curious as to what their how it impacts them. I write a song. A lot of times I draw from real life. Sometimes I draw from a combination of real life and fiction, and sometimes it's purely fiction. But regardless, when I asked this one friend, do me a favor, I'm getting ready to release this new album. Just curious, if you were to describe me to somebody else as far as being a musician and a songwriter, what would it be? She said, this is very simple. You're a storyteller. And that may sound like a duh moment, but most of my songs are very literal lyrically. And I love to create music and rhythm and arrangements that enhance those stories. And it's important that musical arrangement fit with those lyrics. I mean, they have to be married together.
Yeah, that the music serves the story.
Exactly. And so when I had heard Willl speak, and the way he operates and combines kind of in the same way, but all verbally. Like, he's going to tell you the scientifics behind the story that he tells and the humor and why we think the way we think, and put a real life spin on it too, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's an embellishment. I don't know that for sure, but I suspect some of them are embellishments. But whatever it is, he takes those real life stories and twist them, and you walk away with, wow, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, he does. He does have aha moments, and when he speaks, you get plenty of those. I know that we've Will, for people who don't know, just a really quick thing, is a pastor, a stand-up comedian, a counselor. He's all these things, wears many hats. He's a Renaissance man, as it were. And my music partner Larry Smiak and I have played at the Gathering, Will's Gathering, on Sundays a few times, and almost without fail, we decide, oh, this would be a good song to do on Sunday. And it has a lot to do with what he has planned to talk about. And
I love that.
without us consulting with each other, it seems to work out that way. So
Synchronicity.
it really shows you how much, even accidentally, the storytelling and the music can fit together seamlessly when things work out well.
It does. And, I also found, Rick, I'm curious. I'm going to ask you this, if you found the same thing in the first show. I'd play 2 or 3 songs, and then Will would interject. But I found that hour and 20 minutes or hour and a half absolutely flew by, because it was such a great escape. And this was before any of us had, maybe we'd heard of COVID, but it wasn't something that were going to impact any of us, right?
Right.
Or we just didn't know that it was.
Well, half of what we heard at that point, half of what we heard was that it was a hoax and was going to go away when it got warm. So, we weren't yet worried at that point, for sure.
So there's no comparison right now. Anytime we can escape emotionally and mentally to a place that takes us and makes us better, that's a great thing, right?
It is a great thing. And I really like the way you play some music. Will does some speaking, and it breaks it up, rather than having somebody open for somebody else and somebody do a full set and then somebody else do a full set. The interspersing of the two really is part of what I think makes the time fly by like that.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard. I once heard an Albert Brooks comedy album. It was called Comedy Minus You. Remember there was like Music -1 records where they had like a rhythm section, and then there was a part left for you to play an instrument along with the record. This was an old thing, and this was what Albert Brooks based this album on, and it came with a script, because one of the cuts on it was a sketch, and it had a part for you, the consumer, in it. And there was a cameo from Georgie Jessel and whatever. And it was Music -1. And he tells a story in the live stand-up portion of that album about being the unbilled opening stand-up comedy act for Richie Havens in the Astrodome. And he was prepared for disaster, because the crowd was going nuts to see Richie, and they didn't know that there was going to be a stand-up comic on before him.
Oh my gosh.
So the crowd is yelling, Richie, 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 Richie. And Albert says, I go and get my mic from the engineer, and he says, you Richie? No, I'm opening. I'm the comic. Oh, they're going to kill you.
Well, that's reassuring right there.
Yeah, it could be rough, but I really like the interspersing and the switching, and you get a little verbal insight, and then you get a musical story, and it's just a really great evening. So people can see this on this streaming service, Mandolin. How do they get hooked up? How do they get themselves in there?
Well, there's a couple different ways, and this is kind of really cool what we're going to do. We're going to try to make that night a special night on a lot of levels. We're going to try to help Civic Theater out a bit too. So if you want to get your tickets early, and there's plenty of tickets, and we've got them, just so you know, they're on a sliding scale for what people can afford. And if you look at that, the standard admission rate is like $15, but there's some other options there to try to meet everybody's budgetary needs. And but what we're going to do that night is ahead of time, I think you can buy up until that afternoon. If you go to box office mandolin.com, but there's also going to be some links available. So if you go to Soon Civic Theater, we'll have a link. And what's nice about that, if you purchase the ticket off of their link, you can also donate 20% of that ticket cost right back to them. And then, yeah, and also that night we'll also have a place where people could just donate straight to Civic, trying to do our thing and help them, and as well as, just entertain people and provide a great escape. Our friends at Rec Room Recording are actually going to partner with Mandolin that night. They will be the audio eyes and the video eyes and the audio ears for the Mandolin broadcast. And that's a neat opportunity for all of us to be able to work together.
So we can access that Civic Theater link, particularly if we want to donate to Civic through our attendance at the concert. We can access that on Civic Theater of Lafayette, Greater Lafayette's website.
Yeah, website, and that'll be up probably this week. But also, Rick, I emailed you some links that might be available to you to put in the notes. And there's a QR code, and people could probably just scan that if they want, and they can go right to it. Or if they go to the Mandolin box office mandolin.com, or just go to the Mandolin website and search around, and you'll be able to find the box office. It's really cool. Their broadcast, they've been doing some really big shows, and some of those shows have been from a lot of different places. The Ryman Auditorium, they've been doing several shows from there. They've been doing a lot of smaller theaters too, like what we're going to do. A lot of big name acts. And it's really interesting how the whole concept was born. And my friend Robert Midas, who I grew up with, he's a Lafayette guy. He is married to the very talented Carrie Newcomer. And this is kind of a dream of theirs come true, to start a network. Literally, it can be viewed internationally. The audience can be anywhere in the world.
Well, there are a couple of brilliant people there. They are a couple of brilliant people.
They are,
to say the least.
Rick, their hearts are in the right place too. They're focused towards helping the artist, and that's why I just really like them. They put a lot of PR behind it, and you have folks like me who have a regional following, and then you might, the next weekend it might be the Decemberist or Dwight Yoakam on that network, or I forget how many shows they've had. Like I think the last weekend was Dionne Warwick and Dwight Yoakam or something like that. I mean, it's just amazing opportunities for a lot of people and accessibility. So I just thought it would be really nice to do something going into, late spring, to be able to share the comedy of Dr. Willl and some of the music of Indiana singer-songwriters.
And born out of necessity. This live concert via the internet kind of thing, pretty much born out of necessity. And I think that it's something that's going to stay around, actually, don't you?
Absolutely. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see more and more hybrid options. Like with this show, if you can't make it during the show, you have 48 hours to watch it. So, if you buy a $15 ticket over the next 48 hours, you can see that, or whatever ticket option fits you. But you'll have your accessibility to it. Then when they start having hybrid shows where you have some live, you have live folks and the streaming, people can go back and watch it the next day and maybe see themselves in the audience or whatever. What a cool thing, right?
That is amazing.
You can, we're there. And you know what? The big difference between Mandolin is their emphasis on high quality. It's just like you're there. And it's wonderful. It takes you places. It takes you away.
I kind of like to do a show and then forget about it, like blot it out as it goes. I look back on it 2 days later, I'm likely to not feel that I was as good as I thought I was when I was doing it. So but for me personally, I don't know about the 2 days, but it's a really great idea. And people who are managing that sort of thing in a way that helps the musicians and favors what the musicians are trying to do are it's important to have those folks, because obviously whenever there's a void, it can get filled up with hucksters pretty quickly.
You know, the other thing about this, I think what happened is, as a musician, a lot of us, if we wanted to do anything, had to have a one-on-one class in streaming from the very beginning. And then once you learned, you started helping other people learn. And, you know, for me, I also work in a church, and, you know, so just singing into a camera, into an empty room, is something that took a lot of development. And I know virtually every artist that did it, that I know of, would tell you the same. Wow, that was really interesting, singing into looking at a camera. And remember, on the other side of that camera, you have people that are watching you, and but
Right.
that interaction that you would normally get an instant feedback from the audience, you know, is not, it's not there. So it's a good lesson. I always tell younger artists that it's really important that you provide the energy to the performance. Don't count on the audience giving you the energy. Try to work it the opposite way, where you're providing the energy, and watch what happens. And you know,
And that's a good idea, live or on video. You know,
exactly.
you get back what you put into the thing. And we should say that Dr. Will's ministry, The Gathering, is done on Zoom right now, because of
Yes.
the
Yes.
COVID situation. So they've been doing that on Sundays, and they have people sing, and in some ways it's better. In some ways it has some advantages. Like, I could let the dog out, you know, during the sermon.
Sure.
It was like one of those things. And so while we all want to get back to gathering and being out there live and being right in front of people, this ain't bad.
It isn't. And the other thing, you know, that we've discovered through the couple of churches that I work at, you know, you have that situation where you've just opened your audience up. I mean, I remember one of the churches, probably average attendance of 110 to 120, and then you know, you have some Sundays where you have 1,200 views. Now I realize some of those folks are not going to stay forever. They come in and check it out and they leave. But you do have, no matter how you look at it, you do have exposure to what you're doing on a more accessible scale, and to folks that wouldn't have normally been able to hear you. And so if there's any fruits of this, that's what it is. Of all the challenge, the fruits are that.
Well, we're going to put all of the necessary information we can gather in the description with this video, and make sure people are aware of the show on May 2nd with Scott Greeson and with Dr. Willl Miller. And Scott, you're going to have the band there. I know you mentioned before. So who else with you on the night?
Several of the band members will start at 6 p.m., run to like 7:20 or so. It's going to be Kevin Ludwig on guitar. He'll be coming up from Indy that night. I've got Vicki Maris Greeson on accordion and vocals, and Leanna Atwell on piano and vocals, and myself, and Dr. Willl Miller. And special shout out to the folks at Rec Room Recording for helping us that night. Hans and Brittany and Neil McTavish, Ethan Bates, Gibson Wells, they're all going to be doing something. And
lending a hand. That's great. That's great. All in.
And the folks at Civic, man, they are so gracious. It'll be one of the first things that the building's been used for a really, really long time. So God bless.
Been kind of quiet over there. Yeah. So that's great. Well, we will look forward to it, and we know it's going to be good because you guys play so well, and Will's things are always interesting. So that's going to be I mean, other than Kevin's violent, antisocial personality, other than that, you guys are great.
One of the most kind gentlemen ever. Thank you.
We know a different guy. I'm sorry. No, I just have to say something bad about Kevin every time. I don't know why. He's such a nice guy. It's just, I can't help it. Scott, we look forward to a good show, and you be careful, be good, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Rick.
You're welcome, buddy.